So you and I, we were meant to do life together. And I want to welcome you to session 3 of our Equipped Discipleship Training, which is all about connection and fellowship. As I said, you and I, we weren't meant to do life by ourselves. We were meant to do life in community and in fellowship with one another. We have a desire, honestly, that we're born with, the need to belong, the need to be part of something and along with somebody else. In fact, in Scripture, it gives some good reasoning of why we're supposed to be together. And in this session, we're going to unpack the first behavior of a disciple. Remember, our 5 behaviors are connect, grow, serve, pray, and give. And over the next several sessions, we are going to dive into each one of those behaviors. And this very first one is you can't be in discipleship nor make disciples by yourself. We need people, whether that's people in your church community, people in your studies, people at your job, in your school, neighborhood, wherever people are, we have an opportunity to do life together with them. And we need each other. In fact, in Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17, it says that iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. It's just a reminder of the why. So why do we need each other? Well, partially because we sharpen one another. There's accountability, there's strength, there's security, there's honestly power in that. There's great wisdom in the counsel of many people, and we sharpen one another. Another great passage is in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 and 10. It's usually a verse that we'll share at wedding ceremonies. One of my favorite things to do is to be part of a wedding, and almost always you will hear this verse at a wedding, but it's just not about a man and wife. This talks about the community and the sense of community. It says that 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. So why do we need each other? Well, I love what Ecclesiastes says. Because 2 are better than 1. We are better together. Not only do we need each other, but we're actually better together. And if we stumble in our journey, which, listen, we're going to stumble. There's going to be times where we're going to stumble. There's going to be times when we fail. There's going to be times when we get discouraged. There's going to be times where we're sad. All those times are an opportunity for us to lift each other up. And then there's the other side of that. There's times with great joy. There's times of great moments in our life that we also want to share with other people. So in other words, listen, growth happens in community. Discipleship just doesn't happen out of thin air. Making disciples, you actually need another person. It's impossible to do that without another person. But honestly, growth happens within community. There's a timeline-looking piece in the manual that talks about interdependence, independence, and dependence. And where you fall on that scale kind of shows whether you're in good community, in a healthy community, or unhealthy in your nature. And so let's start on the one side, which is independence. This is the side where you have a feeling where you really just don't need anybody. And you don't need anybody to help you. You got your life on track. You're doing good. You're on your journey. You don't need other people. And in fact, sometimes that also implies that, God, I don't even think I need you. I'm totally fine. I'm an independent person. I don't need any help at all. Well, there's some strength there, but there's also a lot of unhealth there because we actually do need each other and we actually do need God in our life. And then if you go to the other side of that scale, the other side is dependence, which is an overdependence, meaning that you actually can't do anything without other people, that you can't even function without other people around you, that you rely so much on the strength and on the community that you yourself aren't actually growing. That's an unhealthy dependence. A question came up as I was teaching this once before, well, aren't we supposed to be dependent on God? And the answer is absolutely yes. We should be fully dependent on God. In fact, I heard it said one time that I think makes sense, where it's that we should pray as if everything depends on God, but work as if it depends on us, meaning it takes both of us. That we should be dependent on God fully, but we also have ownership of this. We actually have to take action and do our part as well. Well, the sweet spot, the posture that we're trying to get at is an interdependent posture, meaning that we're dependent enough, yet we're also in community. That there's this blend between all the things, that we're not so far one way or so far the other way, but we're actually in that sweet spot where we're actually doing life together in a healthy way. So let me ask you, even in that brief definition of independence, interdependence, and dependence, where do you find yourself? Are you leaning too much away that you're actually not in community with other believers? Or are you so immersed that you can't function without it? Or do you find yourself right there in the middle? See, Jesus desires us ultimately is to be united. That's where the sweet spot is. It's to be united. It's to be united with him. It's to be united with other people around us. And that is the spot to be in. Let's look over in John chapter 17, verse 20 to 23. As it breaks it down, it says, I did not ask for those only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they may be one, just as you are, Father, are in me, and I in you, that we are also in one, that they in the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given me, that I have given them, that they may truly be one, even as we are one. Verse 23 says, I in them, and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and love them even as you loved me. So what's this talking about here? Well, what it's talking about is the need for community. It's saying that Jesus desires for his disciples to be in the world, but to be one together, to have unity, and not just to be one with each other, but to be one in Christ. And Jesus himself gives the example, just like he and the Father are one together. So we see community and fellowship, not just a commandment that Jesus tells us to do, but Jesus is actually in community with his own Father. And he's saying that there's this strength, that there's this health in being united in the Father, that he so desires his church to be united. It doesn't mean we always have to agree. It doesn't mean we all look the same and sound the same. It doesn't mean we have all the same intellects and all the same resources. But what it means is that together we are one under one name, and that name is Jesus. We're not together under just one church name. We're not together under one mission or under one organization. It is under Christ that we find ourselves together. See, the faith that we have is private, but it never should be just ours alone. In fact, one way to say it is that our faith is personal, but it's never fully private. So the faith you and I have, it is a personal faith. Nobody else can make you believe in Jesus. Nobody else can make you accept him. So our faith is personal, but it should be private, meaning we should be living it out with other people. It is the enemy who separates, and it is Jesus who unites. And so it's the enemy that would love to separate us from the body, separate us from connection, separate us from fellowship, separate us from other people. And oftentimes, honestly, it happens in ways where it's past hurts, it's pains, it's fears. Maybe you've been hurt by a church before, or you've been hurt by a church member, or maybe you attended a small group one time and it wasn't a good fit, or you heard something that offended you. And then all of a sudden, we just kind of lump it all together and we withdraw, and it pushes us more towards independence, away from the body instead of towards the body. Well, Jesus is the one who unites us. By the way, if you're feeling that discouragement, that really truly is the voice of the enemy trying to get at you, saying, hey, you don't need the body, you don't need God, you don't need Jesus, you don't need your small group, you don't need your church family, you got this. And maybe at times we do, but as a whole, we don't. We need one another. And so the enemy's going to separate, Jesus is going to unite us. When it comes to connection and fellowship, I want to close with Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24 to 25. It's a good reminder, and there's good reward in being together. It says, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of others, but encourage one another. That verse is so strong because what it's saying is that as we come together, so let's start with the second part. The second part is saying, hey, don't neglect meeting together. There's some people who think they got to figure it out. There's some people, honestly, watching right now, you're like, well, I don't need church. And I've heard this before. I don't need church to be saved. Well, that's true, but you need church to be healthy. And Jesus established the church, and he called us to gather together as the church body, as the ecclesia, the coming together of the body. That's important. Why would Jesus establish something and encourage something if it wasn't important? So are you saved if you go to church or not? Sure. But we need that. And here's why. Because it encourages us. It stirs up my desire towards love. It stirs up my desire towards doing good works. And it's also an opportunity for us to encourage each other. So listen, as we are in this journey, in this equipped discipleship training, I want to encourage you, make sure that you are also finding community. Get connected, find fellowship, and don't do life alone. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next session.